All right, Judson University's World Leaders Forum is returning, headlined by foreign policy expert and retired General David Petraeus, who served as the commander of the U.S. forces in Iraq and Afghanistan and later as the director of the CIA. General Petraeus will be in conversation with AM 560's Mark Vargas, host of Mark My Words, heard Sundays at 7 p.m. Tickets start at $50 for veterans, $75 for general admission, and they're available. And find out all the details at judsonu.edu/WLF. And for a limited time, you have the opportunity to win a pair of tickets from AM 560 to join General David Petraeus and Mark Vargas. Enter to win today at 560theanswer.com. Search for the keyword leaders.
Top of the morning, and just a quick aside before we get to our friend Jim Carafano. I know this happened after the Biden CNN town hall on Thursday night, but hopefully there'll be a follow-up. I'm sure there'll be demand for it, so highly watched, and Joe Biden's performance was so scintillating. The question about the World Series, I know that the COVIDian CRT new Marxists like to weigh in on matters of culture like sports.
Right.
You know, we had to move the All-Star game out of Atlanta because Georgia does not allow black people to vote there, as I understand it. And so with the Atlanta Braves and the Houston Astros in the World Series, where are Mayor Bottoms of Atlanta and Mayor Turner of Houston calling for boycotts of their cities? Shouldn't they be? Shouldn't the World Series be moved to a enlightened COVIDian CRT state like the All-Star game was? I mean, that's what Rob Manfred, the MLB commissioner, chose to do. So I don't hear the pressure being put on to move the World Series out of Atlanta and Houston, two states that obviously are not enlightened based on their policies on everything from voting to life to vaccine mandates. They've got crypto white supremacist governors and Brian Kemp and Greg Abbott. So should we start the call to show them we're down with the struggle, get the All-Star or get the World Series like the All-Star game out of Atlanta and Houston? Shouldn't we?
It's a good idea. I mean, why not?
Speaking of Biden's town hall, in addition to this signature line, which really is sort of the motif of his presidency.
The two things that concern me, one are those who just try to make this a political issue. Freedom. I have the freedom to kill you with my COVID. No, I mean, come on, freedom.
Come on, freedom, the Joe Biden years.
He's mocking our freedom.
To efforts he offered on substantive issues that he got just straight up wrong. Everything from real wages have increased since he took office, and that's just factually incorrect. They've declined because of the inflation at nearing 6%. To what we would do if China attacked Taiwan. And he said essentially that we have some sort of NATO alliance with Taiwan, that we have a duty to respond, but that's not our policy. And on that matter, like so many, he had to have staff try and clean up his answers after the town hall. That's encouraging, isn't it? For more on the topic, we're pleased to be joined by the aforesaid Lieutenant Colonel Jim Carafano, Heritage Foundation. Jim, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, it's great to be with you again, to be back in America.
Yes, you have left the country to find the source of the virus. What did you do?
I was in Portugal, Romania, and Moldova, and I know we're going to talk about Taiwan and China, but Russia is a really bad actor, and we ought not to forget that. Today, Russia is spreading incredibly false information about COVID, public health throughout Eastern Europe, and it is really impacting their ability to deal with the virus. And they're getting people killed, and we're not paying attention to that.
For example?
Romania and Bulgaria have two of the lowest vaccination rates they have the two lowest vaccination rates in Europe. And, I get some people want to take the vaccine, some people don't. It's a personal choice. I get that. But actually recruiting the churches in those countries to tell people not to get the vaccine because they're a plot by the West to kill people, that's not a good thing.
And also, isn't the vaccine that they're being offered not approved by the WHO? But that's another reason why they're not taking it. The Sputnik, they call it.
Well, the irony is they actually have pretty good infrastructure in those countries, and they have access to Western vaccines, and they're not taking those either. So it's not just about it's the Chinese or Sputnik. I mean, they do have access to Pfizer and Moderna, but look,
enlisting the churches.
When you get, when you get to like gross vaccination rates, the vaccine is not a magic pill. We all get that. It doesn't keep some people from getting COVID. We get that, but a preponderance of vaccinated adults, really helps your public health system get things under control, and then you can deal with everything else. If people want to take that for religious reasons or because they're concerned about it, whatever, you can deal with that. We have therapeutics and everything else to deal with that. These are countries with very, very thin public health systems. They're not very robust, and so they do need to kind of get to a decent vaccination rate in a safe way. And you actually have the Russian government propagandizing against that, not because the Russian government is concerned about Western vaccines or public health, but because they want to destabilize these countries so they can then have influence on them.
Right.
So they're getting people. They are no better than Joe Biden. They're getting people killed for a political purpose, and that's just wrong, and it's a big problem.
Well,
I
just want to take notice, though, of the state enlisting the churches, because we've had the same thing happen in some states in this country, the other direction, and particularly in America, maybe certainly more so than in Eastern Europe. That should be concerning to us, but it hasn't raised concern among large swaths of the population.
It's weird. We're acting more like the Russians. Rather than dealing with the problem of Russia.
Well, let's talk a little bit about China and their hypersonic missile test, and then this question about Taiwan that Biden bungled. And of course, the Chi-Coms listen to everything that's said, and they're making assessments in real time. I mean, is Biden's, sort of perpetual state of bafflement, is that something that does provoke the Chinese to be more aggressive than they otherwise would be?
Well, we ought to really dig into the statement that he made on Taiwan, because it is really important. So we actually have legislation that governs our relation with Taiwan, which is the Taiwan Relations Act, which provides all the authority the U.S. government needs to strongly support Taiwan and really enhance their deterrence. And to tell the Chinese there really are red lines. And all you got to do is follow the law. It's just that simple. It's not rocket science. Donald Trump, as inexperienced he was in foreign policy, never made a misstatement like Biden did, which is frankly incredible. Here's a guy who's been in politics and been dealing with this issue for multiple decades, and who basically whiffs at the most basic foreign policy question. So that what is that? I mean, because this administration actually hasn't been bad on Taiwan. They've sent senior officials there. They've sent signals about defense cooperation. They've been demonstrative about the Chinese overflights. So they're kind of doing the right thing, but their president literally makes a statement that's amateur hour. How does that happen? And I do think it raises question of competence. And that layers on top of the fact that this administration is acting just like the Obama administration, because it's the same people, which is they're actively trying to avoid confrontation with China, and that's giving China more running room. And now, so they know how to play the American playbook. China knows how to deal with that. And on top of that, they wonder if the U.S. president is really competent. And look, I heard this in Europe. I heard jokes. I heard people seriously asking me questions about, is our president even competent? So does it make China more emboldened? I think that's a fair option for people to consider.
So they're on to Biden's mental health issues over there in Europe?
Well, I mean, in Europe they are, absolutely. So, I mean, this is really everything. It's the same thing you see here. Everything from genuine concerns about is this guy really competent to the kind of jokes we see on Saturday Night Live and other things about is this guy even with it? So yeah, I think it is embarrassing. And if that was the only problem, it was just kind of jokes about the president being clumsy and out of it. We heard those things about Donald Trump. I think it would be a manageable problem. But layer on top of that, where Europeans, the Chinese, the Russians see this administration doing the same kind of risk-averse policies that Obama did, and it's like we're going back to the World Series, and the other guy gave us the playbook, and they've hired a manager who hasn't had a winning series, a winning team in 20 years. And I think that they feel very comfortable in dealing with this administration.
What about on the matter of supply chains and your understanding of perhaps actions that particularly the Chinese communists are taking that may negatively impact them short term, but they could potentially inflict much more damage on us with respect to barren shelves and the like?
Well, I think the Chinese are great studiers, and there's this ancient, Chinese philosopher, Sun Tzu or Xuanzhe, or however you pronounce it, and they read that, not just because it's chauvinistic, it's our great ancient guy, but because there's wisdom there, and that one of the important things is understanding your enemy and how your enemy acts. And so they look at our supply chain issues, and what do they see? They see that these are largely caused by self-defeating policies that are keeping workers at home, and then we see that it is managed atrociously for months, and that they don't even, like, the secretary in charge is on leave and nobody seems to care. They have a task force that does nothing. And again, they go back and they go, oh my God, this looks just like Obama. Here is a team that is very slow at responding to crisis, because if they respond to crisis, people think, well, we're not doing a great job, so we should pretend it's there. And then when we deal with it, by the time we deal with it, it's a really hard problem, and we don't have good answers for that. So then we try to lie and shift the blame and everything else. And the Chinese say, okay, we get this. So yeah, I do think that they look at the supply chain crisis here and say, oh, well, let me write this down, a note, and let me put it in my pocket, and then later on, maybe I'll pull this out, because I know another way to screw with America under Joe Biden.
And then they read pieces like the one from Amanda Mull in The Atlantic, owned by Steve Jobs' widow. Supply chain problems could be solved more quickly if affluent Americans would stop buying up things they don't need and often don't even really want. So it's it's an opportunity to try to put this on the 1% to see if we can pass another few $1 trillion in funny money spend and paper over these problems created by the response to COVID-19.
So if you look, for example, at the people who run Black Lives Matter, they were all trained under university professors who are avowed Marxists, who in the heyday back in the 60s studied in Cuba and read Mao. And those organizations through the years, directly and indirectly, have been supported by the Chinese Communist Party, because the Chinese Communist Party thinks that fomenting class conflict, just like Lenin and Marx did, is a great way to undermine the cohesion of a society. So when you actually see the head of when you see a magazine like The Atlantic essentially fomenting class conflict in the United States, the Chinese just sit back and they go, my work is done here. I take issue. My good friends like Gordon Chang and everything, they're like, oh my God, the Chinese are going to invade Taiwan. Oh my God, the Chinese are going to invade. Look, we are doing their work for them. And as long as we're doing that, the Chinese will sit back and put that in the bank account and just watch the interest rates.
Speaking of doing the work of our uncomfortable on-again, off-again allies at best, Saudi Arabia, the president's response in that same CNN town hall on gas prices, not much he can do, maybe take some from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to reduce prices a little bit, but he's going to have to see what the Saudis are willing to do. I mean, again, this is from the same. That statement is from the same camp that was crying holy hell over MBS's assassination of Jamal Khashoggi during the Trump years. Now we're genuflecting before Saudi Arabia and telling them to turn on the oil spigot for us.
Right. So remember, this is the president that just a few months ago rolled into office, pulled out of Yemen, told the Saudis, you guys are screwing this up, but you're human rights violators, you're on your own. Said, oh, yeah, we're going to totally rethink our defense cooperation with Saudi Arabia, and we're not going to sell them arms anymore. And now he turns around and says, I'm going to go and beg the Saudis to produce more oil. I mean, and these are the adults in the room. These are the people that came in and said, oh, yeah, we really know how to do this stuff. We're going to be the champion of human rights. We're going to be so smart about everything. And they have proven completely inept at every term in dealing with these issues. I mean, here is a country that was literally 12 months ago a net exporter of energy, leading the world. I mean, at the end of the Trump administration, they were talking about, well, maybe we'll form our own OPEC. Not like OPEC, right, where we're going to control the market and stuff, but we will get together with countries to ensure free and open flow of energy, and we'll work together to ensure that happens. And countries like Saudi Arabia they will come and they will listen to us because we have so much energy, we can drive the market. And now we are in hand and knee begging them to sell us oil. And that is in less than a year.
And he should have just kept the Keystone Pipeline construction going.
Yeah, there's a lot of things he could have done. Not to go back to my European friends, but of course, he green-lighted the Nord Stream 2 in Europe. That immediately put the Russians in a better position. Mm-hmm. And the first things the Russians did is they went to the Europeans and they started jacking up gas prices. And one of the places I was in was Moldova, where they want to do 1,000% increase in gas prices. And the Moldovans said, well, what's this all about? And then the conversation was not about, there's a shortage. The conversation was about these are the political concessions that we want you to make in order for us to consider lowering your gas prices. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Putin has empowered that kind of energy blackmail. And Biden has empowered Putin.
We can't focus on all this stuff. I mean, there was you were perhaps overseas, but all the hoopla attendant to Hunter Biden's art gallery opening this weekend, I think, has people, focused on that more so than some of these other less important matters than Hunter Biden's art career. So,
well, look, I think
that.
I think Hunter Biden's laptop was a legitimate issue, and the fact that it was hidden by journalists to help Biden get elected, and it does raise some troubling issues, is legit. But I take your point about, we're assessing about the gallery. We have a whole slew of issues. This gets, I think, back to the basic point of American conservatives. We stop looking at the world as a buffet table and I'm interested in, I'm a pro-life person. I'm not really interested in foreign policy or, I'm the danger du jour guy. Whatever Tucker is upset about today, that's what I'm upset about. And we have to realize that, all these issues affect all of us, that, foreign policy and national security, they affect your paycheck, they affect your community, they affect your personal safety, they affect your family. And we have to get serious about this stuff and get beyond the outrage of the day and be out the bright, shiny object and start looking at this spectrum of issues that are before us and start taking them all very, very seriously and being coherent and integrated on that. And I'll give you a great example where I think Americans have been fantastic, which is look at critical race theory. I mean, I think, families across the country, they got it. They saw it as a problem in their community. They went to their school boards. They stood up. And then, of course, immediately the left tried to crush them. And, they stood firm on this issue. And I think they've made real progress.
Absolutely. Lieutenant Colonel Jim Carafano, VP of the Catherine and Shelby Cullum Davis Institute for International Studies at the Heritage Foundation, author of the book Brutal War, Jungle Fighting in Papua New Guinea, 1942. Jim, thanks as always. Glad to have you back.